Okay, so we're on Nun Gimel Amud Bet,
In the middle of
and we're in the middle of the sugya. Where my line is, I don't think there's a 2 dot here. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 lines on the top. Toshma.
Toshma. Yep.
Tavshin Sachin. It's the last 2 words on the line.
Sorry, where are we?
53B.
You can tell me Hebrew.
Nun
Nun
Gimel.
Gimel Amud Bet, and it's probably.
I was thinking.
Come and listen. Oh, you okay?
Yeah.
So as I say, 10 lines on the top or so. Okay, Toshma. So the rule we had when we left our heroes was about an animal you can't cause to have pain, right? But you don't have to give it to become comfortable. That was basically what Sabal Achaim is wrong,
Right.
and it had to do, an implication was in terms of saddle covers and so forth. And if you may remember this Mardat, so the reason that it was permissible when it was tied down on Erev Shabbos was because the chamorim were always cold,
Right.
even in the summer. So whatever this is what they felt they were. They probably sometimes used a shudder or shiver. So therefore, they felt this was a way to kind of reduce pain. On the other hand, certain other things were prohibited, which may not have given the same amount.
Give pleasure
For example,
instead
there's a
of not pain.
machlokas about putting a feed bag. Right, so feed bag is not to really create tsar. It's really, feed bag is to give pleasure.
Right.
Right? And then we said that there were some small animals that this was permissible to give the feedback. Young animals who couldn't reach down, whose bones weren't fully developed or the appendages weren't fully developed. So therefore, the feedback was considered a necessity for these baby animals, these tiny animals, to survive. So that's some of the discussion that the Gemara is now going to go into. Toshma, Sachin.
No? The Hema Shachaz Adam. That's at least what I thought I have. If I'm in the right place.
About 2 lines above, 3 lines above. Toshma. Toshma Sachin Mefarnach Mufarchasin Lo Adam.
That's not the one I had.
It's about 3 lines
Hema
above.
He has the same Shachaz Adam. So he
No, trust me, I know where I left. Okay,
I agree. We're Toshma 2 lines above.
Yes.
Sachin and Mefarsi.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good.
Yes.
Okay, good. We all agree. That's what we are.
Okay.
So the last thing actually we talked about was about using a kameya to remind ourselves, and whether kameya was a kameya.
Come here,
Yeah.
An amulet.
The amulet, yeah.
Right, and we talked about it, even it was made by a mumcha. We said the mumcha himself wasn't really a mumcha for animals, it was only a mumcha for making kamiyas for people.
Right. Only
Right.
for animals, I think, not for
Oh, only
humans.
for, no,
Was it? It was the other way around.
no, only for people, not for animals.
Not for animals.
Now,
okay,
why
right,
does
right.
that not work? Because animals don't have a muzzle and people have a
Right,
muzzle.
right,
That got
right,
people
right,
upset
Right.
last time. What does it mean we have a muzzle? What are kamiyas? So we'll go to something else. Toshma. Sachin and mefarchasin la'adam vein sachin mefarchasin lebehema. Sachin means you can what do you call it? Anoint with shemen, and you can put some kind of covering on a scab, I think it is, or mefarchasin. Take off a scab or put on a scab. Scrape off a scab for an adam. For a person, you can't do it for a behema. My love the ikamaka mishum tsar. So the Gemara wants to say that you can't do this for an animal, and it shows you that you can't do something for an animal even though it's going to create tsar. Now it says you can do this for a person. Sachem mefarchasin la'adam, you can smear this oil and you can take off the scab, which help the curing for a person, but you can't do it for an animal. So my love dika maka mishum tsar, must be that there's still a maka underneath, and if you don't do it, it's going to create a certain amount of tsar. So the Gemara says, lo, the gomer maka, the maka is finished. In other words, the wound is cured. Misham tanig, it's simply going to give you a tanig. In other words, if you can just imagine when a scab comes off, you probably were kids at one point. Your parents told you not to scratch off the scabs, right? There's still, but once once the maka is cured, the scab will come off by itself. However, you can think of a case where perhaps it was a large type of scab, and until it came off, it was somewhat disconcerting.
You're not allowed to smear stuff on Shabbos.
Yeah, that's what I was going to
So the shemen is not really smearing. It's got to be something thicker. Sachim is something like wax, shaiva. Okay, our case of smearing creams is probably only really midrabanan. Okay, it's really mamarech the rabbanan. Talks about the Gemara talks about shemen ava, thick kind of oils, more like a cream, like our creams. But some of our creams are really not as thick as you think they are. So this is really, think of oil.
Right.
the mamarech is really you're smearing something out, like wax or like a very thick oil. Oil that you're simply pouring on is fine.
Just pour. So
pour-
in other words,
So, for example, something like a liquid deodorant would actually probably be permissible on Shabbos.
Only if it's thick.
Liquid.
Only if it's thick.
Only if
If
it's a
thin,
liquid
it's
like
fine.
oil,
If it's
like-
thick, it's
I'm
not.
talking about liquid deodorant, which is like a rub-on
So then
deodorant.
okay.
It's not going to rub on if it's thick, but as opposed to as opposed to your thick rub-ons. I'm sorry, the thick
sorry, I just wanted to get
the rub-ons that are solid,
Or
right?
thick
Or
stuff.
thick,
Right.
the gooey stuff is not going to be permissible. Something that's very liquid would be fine.
So-
Okay, thick is the right stuff.
so as long as it's like, it flows like oil.
Right, correct, right.
That's okay.
I think I told you when I was there, in Baltimore recently, that the shul one of the shuls I daven in, they watered down the liquid soap.
No, you didn't.
I didn't say
Okay.
that. Maybe I'll say it now. They
Yeah.
watered down liquid soap. You got to really be careful because when you press it, it's simply the soap squirts,
Dispensers.
soap dispensers. They're actually the ones you buy in the store. It's not even such a high class one, but they put water into it. So when you press it, it goes,
That's what
because
so the
the-
dafka, it should be like.
It should be like liquid, correct?
Liquid.
Because
That's what I do for taking a shower in Yom Tov. The rabbi said I water it down a little
you
bit.
water down the water.
But then I decided just to buy the cheap stuff. It's watery anyways.
There you go.
No.
You're fine.
You buy the real, the ivory, it's thick. You buy the cheap stuff. It's
Correct.
watery.
It's a subjective
No, I'm not-
call, though. How much is
What's thick is something that you have to smear. You have to smear something. Mamarech is smearing.
It runs itself.
Smearing.
then
If it
it's,
runs itself, you're not smearing it.
okay?
Okay? So you're right, it is subjective. There is a fine line where is smearing and where is something that's liquid.
But the idea must be tanug versus like cleanliness,
Right.
right? Or whatever.
I'm sure that this, I don't want to belabor the point, I'm sure this issue about the soap itself is a matter of discussion among different rabbanim and poskim. There are places, shuls you go to that are very good religious, up-Kahit shuls,
Right.
and they use the regular soap. Right? Okay. So it's liquid. It's liquid. It's not. So it's really when the Gemara talks about smearing, it's using something like wax or very thick, what's called shemen of thick oil. I don't know what thick oil really is, but okay, almost like oil that's kind of become solidified of some
And
sort.
does it make a difference in this case because of the fact that,
It's an animal because
No,
the fact that
no.
it's making it feel better.
yeah, the man, he's
Maybe.
he's sick, but it's not sakana, obviously.
Right. Okay. Maybe. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can't remove a scab on Shabbos because blood.
No,
comes out.
you
Here it
right.
sounds
So
like
you
you
can't.
can.
So
Well,
these.
no,
So in
not
other
with
words, correct. So it's not clear what kind of scab this is because first of all, if it is a scab, you don't want to remove it. Second of all, if it's going to come off, it's going to come off by itself, as you understand the scab. So I'm not quite sure exactly what this kind of wound was or what it is. But the bottom line was, at the end of the day, At the end of the day, if it's when the wound is actually healed, so just keeping the scab on is really more of a tonic. So you see that for an animal, you can't give a tonic. You can only do something that's not going to be
Right.
tzar. Okay. Toshma, behema shachaz adam. This is a Gemara here. Can we get you a Gemara here? Because we're doing. We're actually doing Masechet Shabbos.
Oh, okay.
This is not Daf Yomi.
It's not Daf
You
Yomi
look-
is at 9 o'clock.
Daf Yomi is going to be in the Kolel.
Oh, okay, great.
Okay, so if you're going to.
It's better than that.
I don't want to sell. I don't want to sell you.
Wouldn't want to be in the wrong.
I don't want to sell you a bill of goods, and Zvachim is hard enough for you to learn when you're learning Zvachim than learning Shabbos. Okay, come back and visit. Now, here we go. Tashma. So behema shachz adam. This is, you have to remember that there were 4 different kinds of humors that they believed in those days.
Right.
So there's I guess the blood humor, which I guess it makes the animal feel hot or some kind of feverish of some sort. So I'm not sure exactly what this really illness is, but so the Brisa says behema shachz adam emamidam asabamayim b'shvil shetistanein. That if the animal is suffering from this heat illness of some sort, this overheating, this heat exhaustion, this achaz adam, you can't put it into the water for it to cool down. It obviously looks like it's summertime. But adam shachaz adam amidam aso b'mayim b'shvil shetistanein. But you can do that for a person. You put him in the cold water and he can cool down. Now, even though we really have certain restrictions about medications on Shabbos. So Amar Ula Gzeira Mishum Shchika Samamin. So you can't put the animal into the water because we're afraid if you're going to put the animal in the water to cool down, then it might be a small step to start just giving him medications. If you're giving him medications, you might come to pound the medications or compound the medications, to be a better term, that you'd be scraping them down and it would be tochen,
But
correct.
for a human, you can do it, we're saying.
But no, so the Gemara is going to say, Yihachi says the Gemara Adam Nami, so how can the person do it? So the Gemara says, well, some of the medications is a funny kind of thing. If it looks like it could not be a medication, right, it looks like it's not really a treatment, then it's okay, because people say that the person is in the pond for a different reason. Nami, Adam nire kamekar. It looks like the person is in the water because he simply wants to cool off. Okay, this is for those of you who want to take a quick dip on Shabbos. Okay,
It's clearly permitted.
there you go. Okay, but not in your shower. You gotta go find the
So if you're
go to
overheated,
Mill Street Pond. Okay,
but the implication, forgive me, seems to be that the man is oches dam. He's
Right.
got this,
he's got this overheating and he wants to cool
And he
down.
wants to cool off.
Right.
So we're saying on the one hand, you can do it.
Right,
And
so-
the reason you can do it is because
Because
most people aren't going to think he did it for that reason.
right,
They're just going to think he...
correct. People are going to think they went in the water simply to cool down. And by the way, this is not taking a shower. This is simply just standing in water.
Yeah, just stand there and watch.
So the Gemara says, well, if that's the case, Yihachi behemanami, right? Near a kamekar. The people think the animal's also standing in the water to cool down. So the Gemara gives a funny answer: Ein markela behema. That there is no cooling down. Animals are not that clever to go into the water to cool down, or at least, which is, I said, it's a funny kind of answer because.
Not only were the donkeys that they had cold in the summer, they weren't even intelligent enough to go into the water to cool
No,
down.
because everybody knows that probably the place where animals tended to hang out was the watering hole, and they would go into the water to cool down. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure that out. But it means that the animal is not going to do it on its own. These were animals that were domesticated or semi-domesticated. So they probably, during the daytime, they probably were in their stalls or in their barns. They didn't go into a watering hole. A person, on the other hand, he has his own das. He does what he wants to do. So if the animal does it, people are going to know it's not the animal's decision. If it was a wild animal, they can do what they want. Right.
So the person can do it?
So the Gemara seems to say the person can do this because there's nothing wrong with cooling down in the water, and it will not be interpreted necessarily as a refuah,
Right.
but just simply because a normal case of where the person is hot. And it's like when they open the hydrants in the ghettos, okay, and the kids and adults all walk underneath it, okay. So therefore there. But on the other hand, an animal can't do it. So the Gemara says, one second, v'lebehema migazrinan. Do we make a gzeira? That, especially a case here where this animal is this could be a loss of the animal could be overheating. Do we make certain gzeiros for animals? In other words, we're concerned about animals that we don't allow them to do things. V'yotanya, and then Gemara gives a funny kind of case. So the case is, Tchum Shabbos is you can't walk beyond a certain place.
Right.
Okay, so the situation, the initially we think the animal has gone beyond the Tchum of Shabbos of the owner.
Right.
Okay, so let's say the Tchum Shabbos is 2,000 amos outside of the city, and the animal has gone 2,050 amos.
Right.
Itself.
Well, it wandered off on its own. It wandered off by itself. Why would the animal wander off on its own?
No, what about Zechum?
Well, the animal doesn't know about the
That's
Tchum.
right.
Correct. Why not? You're saying, why wouldn't the animal wander off?
Yeah, of course.
If an animal wants to wander.
That's correct. So, but the problem is the owner wants to get it back.
Absolutely.
So are you allowed to call
So
the...
he calls
So the
the
guy
animal.
can't go outside the Tchum, outside his Tchum to get the Gemara thinks the case here is the owner can't go outside his Tchum to get the animal.
Right.
So what does he do?
He calls the animal.
He calls the animal v'hiba. And we don't say v'lo gazrin on dilmal asi le'asuya. We don't say maybe if we allow the guy to call to his animal, then you know what? If the animal doesn't come, what's he going to do?
Walk outside.
He's going to keep walking himself. We don't make a gzeira on an account of an animal. In other words, you don't say the person can't. So why would you say that the animal you can't put in the water? Because gzeira, people will think that because it looks like it's a refuah, and you might come to kind of mshchika samamanim. We don't do that for animals. You say about people, you can't do certain things. The animals are animals. The animal wants to go into the water. You don't start thinking, this double guessing what people and the animal think about what the animal is doing.
The whole basis for this is the fact that it says in the Torah that we have to rest the animal.
Correct, right.
If it wasn't for that, there'd be no issue.
But the issue, once again, here is not about making the animal work. It's about making the animal be concerned about certain gzeros that we apply to people to apply those to animals. That's the issue. In other words, for example, no one says, let's be very clear, no one says the animal can't rip out grass on Shabbos. Right? No one ever said that. You have an animal, you rest, you put the animal out to pasture, the animal's going to chomp and eat. You can't go rip the grass up on Shabbos. You can't, that's called kosher. Right? But for the animal, that's the idea. We say, well, the animal's doing machal Shabbos. It's an animal. You can't do the stuff for the animal. So,
isn't it a secret to Nichole? Because you put
no,
him on the pasture, what do you think he's going to do?
It's fine, but that's the animal. That's the animal's behavior. What you can't do is you can't hitch up an animal to start plowing for yourself and cutting the grass for you to cut the grass. But the animal does things. In other words, when we talk about the animal that you rest and your animal rests, it doesn't mean that the animal has to sit with a daf Gemara. Exactly. It doesn't mean the animal comes to shul. It doesn't mean the animal has a Shabbos snap. It means the animal behaves like an animal. You can't force the animal to work for you. That's what it means. You say, I'm not doing any work. I just hitched up the animal and the animal's plowing. I'm not plowing. Right? So that's what's wrong. So here, what are we trying to say? But we're trying to say here that it looks like with certain things, even if the animal's doing nothing wrong,
and doing it on its own.
And they're doing it on its own, it looks like actually you're going to put the animal into the water, but that you're concerned people, it may lead to a gzeira that maybe because of this for the animal, someone may come to start compounding spices and herbs to make some kind of medication. So you see here from the case of the tchum,
right.
It looks like you're not concerned. We don't say, let him call. We don't say, don't call the animal, because if you call the animal, you may come to go beyond the tchum. The issue is not the animals beyond the tchum. The animal is an animal. The animal can wander anywhere. The issue is you may come to wander outside the tchum. Right? By the way, those of you who've ever gone outside the city, tchum is a serious issue. Right? If you go camping, for example, tchum can be a problem. Okay? If you're in a camping area and there's forest all around. If you're living out, if you go vacationing and there's nothing around,
2,000 amos isn't very big.
2,000 amos is not big at all. 2,000 amos is less than a mile, right? 2,000 amos, let's say an amos is 2 feet. That's 4,000 feet. A mile is 5,000 feet, 5,092 or something, right?
You walk in circles.
Okay.
5280.
No, it's not 5280. It's 5, maybe 5 something else. Maybe it's 5280. Whatever it is, it's not that far. It's really not that far.
Not far.
Okay. So now within the city, of course, you can walk forever and a day, right? By the way, just trying to remember this offhand. I'm not sure I have it fully clear. When you say Tefillah Saderech, it's supposed to be within the first mill, I think, outside the city.
Oh, really?
Right? I'm sorry?
Is that what it is?
Right, now the question really, what does that mean? I think it's the first mill. If you don't, you can keep saying it afterwards. What does the mill mean? A mill is like a kilometer, I believe. It's like a Persian mile. But what does that mean? The amount of time it takes to go a mill? Right? Or because if it's driving in a car, you're doing a mill very quickly. Right? But you may be walking for 20 minutes to do a mill.
But you don't know where the city ends. The problem is.
So that's the problem, is you don't know where the city
Where
is.
does it end?
Right. Where do you say Tefillah Saderech when you leave on the 401? If you're going west. Anybody know? I don't know.
London.
When you get some fields. I don't know.
No, that's before London. I usually say it's somewhere past
When I
the
see the
airport.
houses end and there's a bunch of fields, corn or whatever, then I say it.
I don't know.
Whenever you decided you're on your
Right.
way, you're on.
So, I mean, maybe you shouldn't say Tefillah Saderech at all. Maybe it's all like inhabited until you get to London. Correct.
Yeah.
Right. For example, in Israel, some people tell me they do say Tefillah Saderech on the highway between Tel Aviv and Yerushalayim. Some people say they don't say Tefillah Saderech because it's all developed. I'm not sure if that's really true or not, but there are towns all along. Okay.
What about the danger of Arabs along the way? Is that part of
So that you should pack a piece in your pocket.
You do that anyway.
So the answer is Tefillah Saderech. Tefillah Saderech is not the only reason for Tefillah Saderech is not simply just it's going to protect you. You should say it every day you get out of bed.
There's no shame in Malchus.
So this-
I'm
I'm sorry?
It was Al Capone that said, a nice word, always use a nice word, and a nice word with a pistol really works
Better.
better than just a nice word, right?
So the answer is you're right, but this is something you do outside the city. Something we do outside the city. I don't know why exactly. One could argue perhaps that when you go outside the city, there are certain other dangers that present themselves even today, like getting stuck on a highway in the middle of nowhere. It's truly a lot more challenging than getting stuck on a highway going down Bathurst, on the Bathurst Street or in a 401 in the city. Right? If you're traveling out where there's no one around, especially before they had cell phones, or if you're in an area where there's no cell phone service, so it can be trickier. Or if any of you, winter driving in this area, we all recognize that winter driving gets a lot more challenging once you go outside the city. So there is some logic to it, but you're right. But you're true. Within the city there itself, there is a certain amount of danger. Don't speed. Take good. Be cautious. We do say that, by the way, that everything that you do has a certain amount of danger. You cross the street.
Sure.
We don't say we stay on one side of the street. There's a certain amount of understanding that Hakadosh Baruch Hu Shomer B'Sam Hashem watch over the innocent, right? And therefore look both ways. Cross at the light. Don't cross in between. And hopefully Hakadosh Baruch Hu watch over you, right? And if it's nighttime, wear a reflective pad. There you go. Okay. All right, back at the ranch. So at any rate, so the Gemara says, let's go back to our case with Tchum. So with Tchum, it looks like we are not concerned that you're going to walk out of the Tchum. So that's what we're trying to prove is a question, or that's a question, right, on the case about the animal going into the water. So the Gemara says, V'yom Ravina, Kagon shoya tchum shalo muvla betoch tchum shalo. So let me explain to you what this means. The case is as follows. I have a certain tchum that I can walk on Shabbos, right? If you're in the next town, you have a certain tchum that you want to walk. If you want to make an eruv tchumin, what do you really do?
You have a little
You're setting up food at the end of your tchum, and what you're doing is you're making your center of the locus that place. But let's forget the area of tchumin for now. I'm in town A, and you're in town B. So we each have different tchumim.
Right.
So here's what happened. I gave my animal to my good friend Moshe on Erev Shabbos. Now, for that animal is resting his Shabbos or her Shabbos at Moshe's house. So the animal follows the tchum of Moshe, because that's where the shvisa, that's where the Shabbos parameters are. In the same way that I have a tchum Shabbos, depends on where I'm sleeping for Shabbos. If I'm sleeping in my home, that's where my tchum Shabbos comes from, or the city comes from. If I decide to go to Boston, if I decide to go to another town for that Shabbos, I have a different tchum. So if I give the animal to my friend for that Shabbos, the animal's tchum follows his tchum, even though it's my animal.
Yeah.
Because the guy is now looking after my animal.
Right.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry, correct. But in terms of the person going after the animal.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
So the situation is as follows. Let's see if I get this correct. The animal is outside. The animal is within my tchum. However, the animal has gone out of
my neighbor's
tchum.
Right.
So for me to schlep the animal, it's like I'm schlepping my neighbor outside the tchum. Am I confusing you?
No. Even though
I'm confusing you. In other words, the animal on his own is fine to do what it wants to do. The animal can wander anywhere. The animal can run amok. The animal's not bound by tchumin. But humans cannot cause the animal to break the Shabbos. What defines breaking Shabbos? So we thought when we first presented this that let's say my tchum ends here at the end of this Gemara. The animal is here. I can't go get the animal.
Right.
The animal can come back on its own, so I call the animal, right? What I'm afraid I'm going to walk. So the Gemara says it's not the case. The case is where the animal was given to Moshe. Now Moshe's tchum really goes up until here.
Right.
So let's see if I get that correct. No, the other way around. Moshe's tchum is over here.
Okay.
So the animal's tchum is over here. Let me try it again. The story. It's my animal staying with Moshe.
Spending Shabbos at his neighbor. Exactly.
Okay, here we go. This is the case. My tchum ends here.
Yes.
Moshe's tchum ends here.
Okay.
Okay. The animal is living with Moshe.
Right.
For Shabbos.
Right.
So the animal is going to be bound by Moshe's tchum. The animal has wandered outside its own tchum.
Right.
but it's wandered into my tchum.
Right. Yeah.
Okay? So therefore, if I now go and grab the animal, what am I doing?
You've sort of broken Moshe's
I've broken Moshe's tchum. It sounds kind of funny. I'm forcing the animal to break Shabbos, but it's really I am forcing the animal to break Shabbos. In the same way that if I hitch up the animal, I force the animal to cut the grass. So says the Gemara, the case is some kind of case where the animal is outside of the tchum where it was living for Shabbos or being stable for Shabbos, and that makes it feel better. But I'm within my tchum, so I'm not concerned about my walking out of my tchum
Because you're inside.
because I'm in the tchum. But what my concern is the animal maybe pulling the animal further out of the tchum. But I don't have the ability to take the animal back to Moshe.
Right.
Because that's out of my tchum. So what I want to do, I want to make sure I get a hold of this animal and bring the animal back to my place. Oh, the animal is going to wander even further outside its tchum. Well, if I call to it, I'm not forcing it to come. I'm not schlepping it by force.
Right.
That's the scenario. So in other words, you can't prove that this concern was about the gzeros, yes gzeros, no gzeros. So that's not the case. I don't have a gzera here. The issue is my concern really in terms of what the animal's tchum is, which is this unusual kind of case. Okay, so that's the Gemara says, that's what Ravina says. Where are we up to? I lost my place. V'yam Ravina kagon shehoyeh tchum shelo muvla betoch tchum shelo. That's what Rashi explains the case is, that the outside the tchum is for the animal, because the animal was given to Moshe. Rashi says it was given to a roeh, to some kind of shepherd, some kind of stable hand, who therefore the animal will follow that roeh for Shabbos, because it is now considered that's the owner of the animal for that Shabbos, and it's gone beyond the tchum. So I can't pull it with my hands because the animal's gone outside the tchum, and I can't bring it back. Right? I can't bring it back. So if I call to it and it comes, so that's not really, it's not really forcing the animal. So if I don't carry it by physically, I can actually call to the animal itself. That's how the Gemara is able to find and explain what this is going on. Okay? So that's one answer. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak Amar Shchika Samamonim Gufa Tanaihi. Okay, that the whole idea of being concerned about making medications for animals, that's a machlokas tanaim. Not everybody agrees to it. In other words, you gave me an example of why are we concerned about shchika samonim for an animal? Are we concerned about shchika samonim for an animal? So he says there are two opinions, and here's the case they give. The Tanya, behema sheachla karshinim. Karshinim is they translate it as vetch. I don't know exactly what it is, but whatever it is, the animal has eaten too much of this and has gotten an extreme stomach ache.
Vetches.
Right, vetches. Think of it as having too much roughage or something. I don't know, whatever it is. So, what do you want to do? So the Gemara says, Lo yiritzena b'chotzer b'shvil shetisrape. You cannot, the first opinion says, you cannot have the animal run around the yard. This is not about going outside the chotzer, the tchum, it's in the yard. But you're forcing the animal to prance around. Because by prancing around, this animal which is suffering from, I don't know, maybe it's constipation, maybe it's the opposite of constipation, will be able to loosen its bowels. I don't know how to actually translate into modern animal language, but whatever it is. So therefore, the first opinion says you can't do this because what you're causing the animal to do is to get better. Rabbi Yoshaya Mater, Rabbi Yoshaya says it's mutter. Okay. So you see that there is a machlokas between the first opinion of this brisa and the second opinion of Rav Oshaya about whether you can do some kind of medical treatment.
Right.
This is some kind of medical treatment to reduce the animal's pain, or and if you can't do it, so that's the concern about shchika samamonim.
Right.
If you could do it, you see that you're not concerned about making zeras, they're concerned about people shchika samamonim in terms of animals. Okay. So far, so good. Let's move on. Darash Rava. Halacha Rabbi Moshe. So the Rava says that the halacha is like Rabbi Moshe, that it's permissible to get the animal to prance around to make the animal feel better.
So you can try, in other words, to cure, so to speak.
Right, correct. So we can try to cure animals. The whole concern about medications only has to do with human medications, if at best, and once again, if you study the modern poskim, there are all kinds of exclusions and ways around it, so don't get worried about it that much. But when animals are surely not an issue at all. Okay. Amar Mar. So this goes back to part of a brisa that we had learned. And it says as follows: Lo yetzi azav b'kish shelo. This is a zav, was a person who suffers from the zavus, gonorrhea or something like that, and he would wear some kind of pouch. So, and remember what this was not a really hygienic situation. He wanted to see if he still was having zavus, in order to determine whether how we would have to count his days to become tahar. Right? So if you see twice, you're a zav. You see 3 times, it's a bigger type of zav, a more chomer zav, and so forth. And that was one thing. So he cannot go outside wearing this, because it's not really a type of garment. V'lo izim bekis shebedadehem, and you can't take the goats with this, was some kind of bag around their udders. And the question was why would we want to do that? So there are a couple of reasons were discussed. One was to allow the milk to be caught, possibly to protect the dadim, to dry out the dadim, right? So the Gemara brings this down that you can't do this for the izim. We're not going to deal with the zav guy. And the Gemara says, "V'yatanya yotzos izim b'kishim b'dadehem." Okay, so we have a brayso that says you can do it. So either can you or can't you. So the Gemara usually says, well, it's 2 different situations, right? Either it's 2 different situations or 2 different kinds of people. Either 2 authors or two different mices. So Amar Rav Yehuda, the first answer is lo kasha, had mahadek, had lo mahadek. First case is if it's tied on well, if it's attached, so we're not afraid it's going to fall. And if it falls, if the kiss would fall off the dadim, what would happen? You would pick it up. You don't want to lose it there. It fell off in the middle of the thoroughfare. So you'd run after the zim to put it back on or to take it home. You'd be carrying. So in the other case, so if it's not attached well, you can't do, the izim can't go out. If it is attached well, you could. Okay. Rabbi Yossi, I'm sorry, I skipped the line. Rabbi Yossi Omar, Tanoi Shaklas Me'alma. You're trying to give a situation in different cases. There are actually 2 different opinions. You've removed Tanoim, you've removed Tanaitic opinions, you've made everyone monolithic in terms of this, and that's not true. There are different halachic opinions, different Tanaitic opinions. That's Ho'izim yotzim truros. This actually I think is this our Mishnah or is this a Mishnah?
Oh, truros is like
tied up.
Pebbles and stuff like.
No, it's
somewhere there's truros. I guess it's a different.
Yeah, truros is pebbles.
Right.
Right. V'navsho truro b'navsho. Think of that tzrura. That's what Yosef.
I got you.
Right, that's nafsho tzrura. Actually, it's nafsho kshura b'nafsho, but there's also tzrura somewhere.
I think that's.
So it means tied together. So it means so the izim can go out tzruros when they're tied up. Now this is not bags. This is tying up actually the udders.
Right.
So you're tightly tying the udders, and this may be a case of where you're trying to dry them out. Right, or protect them. Rav Yossi Omer b'chulam chutz v'narechelos hakvunos, that they're all permissible to do except for the rechelos hakvunos. I forgot what kvunos is. What's kvunos? I'm sorry. Fastened. Okay. Right, I don't remember why they're fastened. So the rechelos, the ewes can't go out, but all the other animals, izim can. So the goats can, but the rechelos cannot. So Rabbi Yehuda Omer, izim yotzos truros liavesh, avalo lecholev. Okay, so in other words, on the third opinion, Rabbi Yehuda says it depends why they're being tied up. Are they being tied up to allow the udders to dry out? So you're exerting pressure to reduce the flow of lactation. Or are they being tied up in order to enhance the milk to be collected, that the milk will I guess, allowed to be more? By allowing the udders to be collect the milk, the udders will refill and refill. I'm not sure exactly. But in other words, but you do see here at the bottom line, is that there are different opinions about whether they can go out with covering their dadim. So there are at least 3 opinions. One opinion is, the first opinion is, izim go out, tzruros. Rabbi Yossi says all animals can go out except for rechelot. And Rabbi Yehuda says, depends what it's for. So therefore, the one that says you can't would be about this going out chalev, and you can't. The others would be the other one of the other opinions. V'boy seima hava Rabbi Yehuda. I said the third and another answer is you don't have to go to different opinions. It can all be Rabbi Yehuda. V'lokasha kan liyavish kan lechalev. Okay, so it's either differences in terms of what the purpose is. If it's to kind of dry them out, it's fine. Okay, why? Because that's tied very tightly. Okay, and it's tied very tightly, and it's not going to fall off. Because what's the purpose of tying them there?
Right.
To allow them to dry out and be less weighty. Right, and you're hobbling the lactating mechanism, the lactating gland. You're putting pressure on it, and this by the way does work. I mean, when women are they bind their breasts to reduce lactation. So it does work in the animal kingdom too. On the other hand, if it was the other way around, right, that would be a different situation. So if it was simply lecholev, so that's a case where it's going to enhance lactation because the reason to wrap them is to collect the milk. Right, it's almost to put pressure on the gland to squeeze the milk out, so that the gland will once again be enhanced to create more lactation. Okay. I'm Rabbi Yehuda. Ma'isa ba'izim based on tuchaya. Shahaya dadem gasim v'yoso bahem kisim kidei shlo yisrutu dadehem. So now we bring about, this is a large unusual situation where the izim, the goats, and by the way, looks like it's very common that people drank goat milk.
Oh, yes.
Rather than cow milk.
Oh, yeah, I don't think they had cow
Right,
milk.
they didn't have cow milk. They had cows were used for meat or for other
Well,
things.
cows also take a lot more room and a lot more
Right.
everything, right?
Right, so everybody, look, I knew someone who had a goat in their backyard, so they could have chol v'Yisrael.
Where?
Yeah.
Rare?
Where?
Actually, I don't want to tell you because the person is presently under indictment.
Sorry, I wouldn't have known that.
These grand juries.
No, what is the?
But it was in the United States.
Yes.
No, I mean, if I
The
forget.
United States, you get special prosecutor everything.
Does Chol Yisrael apply?
So, but he
not
did. They
just
actually, but this is many, many years ago, and he lived in a city where he could not get chol v'Yisrael, and he wanted to keep chol v'Yisrael. He was a very
There you go,
unusual
the man is
individual,
trying to-
and therefore,
If
we had to go.
Does Chol Yisrael
Anti-Semitism,
apply only to cows or all?
All animals applies to cholav.
Why just?
It applies.
Milk it every
Chol
day.
v'Yisrael is no different than the fact that you have hashgacha and many different things. The question is, how do you know that it's really milk? How do you know? Well, how do you know it's milk from a cow and not from a pig? I'm sorry, a camel or a camel. That's the real issue.
Camel.
Now, the response of Rabbi Moshe Feinstein basically said that, well, you know what? We have government regulations. You can only call things milk in the United States and Canada if it's really cow's milk.
There's no camels.
Besides
Yeah,
that,
fair
okay? But they're not allowed to call it milk. If you want goat's milk, you have to call it goat's milk, right? There are federal fines and regulations. Records have to be kept. Records are kept. So this is the same thing as having a mashgiach there. So you don't have to. So cholav akum, what we call stam cholav, is therefore okay. Which, by the way, Rav Moshe Feinstein himself apparently allowed this for his family, but he never allowed it for himself. And he said the reason was because he drank chol v'Yisrael for many years in Europe, so he felt it was like a kabbalas neder, like a chumrah that he took a vow to take. You don't want to but that's the famous tshuva that Rav Moshe wrote. This is many years ago, when before the chol v'Yisrael was really available anywhere.
In the 50s.
Yeah, and that's what people do rely upon. Now, what the issue of chol v'Yisrael is, yeah, that's true. This does not apply, by the way, in traveling in Europe. In many places in Europe, there are no regulations. Poland, for example, I wouldn't drink them. I don't believe there are regulations. I don't know. And years ago, I remember you could get raw milk at farms.
Yeah, you still in
Anybody-
Ontario, there's all
I don't know.
cases.
I don't know if they still can do this.
Yeah.
A
you
guy
have raw
went to
milk.
court and
Yeah.
raw milk.
Raw milk,
Right.
yeah.
There are people who believe
Right.
it's healthier.
It's healthier, but of course, it's not been.
Not pasteurized.
But it's not pasteurized. It's correct. It's not pasteurized. Okay, it's not pasteurized. But the point was, the farmer who's running the raw milk, who knows what he puts in there.
Right.
But there's a famous tshuva, not famous tshuva, in the Aruch HaShulchan actually, where he talks about Chol Yisrael. He writes about a situation that people came to him and they were crying because every day they would go to a certain cafe for coffee, right?
Pancakes or something.
What?
Made it of ground up.
I think it was pig's brains or something like that.
Maybe something like that.
So the people would come and
Maybe
they'd go
you're
to
right.
this Geisha innkeeper and they'd of course have coffee and they'd put milk and bring out milk and they'd have milk, or it was cream then was cream from the milk. And then finally, after many weeks, they said to the owner, "This is the best cream we ever had. What makes it so good?" He says, "Well, I grind up pig's brains into it and I put it in. The schmaltzy stuff makes it good." And they all go, okay. So they come crying to the Aruch HaShulchan, and that's what he writes that you should, of course, should only drink Chol Yisrael for
So
that.
what do these Chol Yisrael people do? I mean, what's
So they have a mashgiach.
to say
There's a
what?
mash-
That it came from a cow?
There's a mashgiach present at the milking. Yes.
Right.
Right, the same way that you have mashgiach at anything that you have a concern about. Right. It's no different than any other type of
And
hashgacha.
probably Yotzei v'nichnas, etc.
I'm not quite sure. I don't know. I don't know what the situation is. I don't know.
With Rab Feinstein, I mean, we're talking about.
But whatever it is,
big factories.
whatever it is, that's really where it comes from. The question is, can you rely upon the government? The answer is yes, and the answer is, on the other hand, this is a situation, a tradition of many, many centuries, and there are places in the world where you cannot. People used to tell me that down in the south of Israel, there were situations like in the Negev where they would try to mix camel's milk in. This is years ago. I don't even.
Okay, I can't believe that.
Okay, you can believe
In
it.
India, they
Yeah.
use camel's milk ice cream. There's a
Okay,
whole.
so-
because-
I don't know.
because
Hey.
The Gemara says you can't make butter out of camel's milk.
Right, it won't
Oh,
curdle.
yeah. So what they did is they found out some kind of process.
Why would the
No, that's the
Gemara
thing.
even think of allowing?
No, but you
Right.
can't make butter out of
Right.
But in India, they found some kind of process. I
Or you
forget
mean
what
how
they
to do it?
Yeah,
But
so
let's-
now they
right.
make ice cream and butter from the camel's milk.
One of
with
the
some kind
difference,
process.
one of the key differences between mammals and other types of creatures is mammals are lactating.
Absolutely.
Right?
That's-
Mammals nurse their young. That's one of the common features, one of the basic features. So as a result, it's not unreasonable that if you had other kinds of animals, you would mix it in. Okay.
Oh, sure.
Now, so these izim of Beis Antochayu had very big udders, and therefore they were bound up shelo yisrutu dadehem, that they would. This is not about protecting them from lactation or non-lactation. They were concerned about their scraping on the floor and becoming ulcerated.
Right.
So they were wrapped up. So you see that you can do it. This mice is brought to show that it can be done depending on what the reason is.
Absolutely.
Okay, now we got time for this interesting story. Tana Rabbanan. Anybody know anything about male lactation?
No, but I've heard about it.
Okay.
And some old
It's
people,
my-
some
it's out of
old
my-
guys or something like
It's
that.
beyond my pay scale.
So first of all, it does occur in neonatals,
What does
right?
that mean?
Young babies.
Young babies.
Okay, young babies. Apparently that there is some lactation. It's very watery, like we don't pay attention to it. It's not unusual that a male baby, maybe newborn, could have something coming out of a nipple. Okay.
Could it be from the mother? 'Cause
No, it's not from the mother. it's
Like, I mean,
the
because
baby.
what I mean is.
No, it's just
Maybe
it's
a
the
hormone.
gland.
from the mother.
Hormone from the
Yeah,
mother.
it's some kind
Hormone
of
from the
hormone.
mother, that's what I meant.
Okay, so
Doesn't mean anything from your-
and the most famous biblical case of male lactation is where Moshe says, "Kasher yisah homenas hayonek." Can I tolerate Bnei Yisrael? Kasher yisah homenas hayonek. You know, what am I going to do? They keep bothering me. It's going to come up one of the coming parshios. I forgot
I thought
when.
that had to do with a nursemaid holding a.
Right, correct. But
suckling a
but
baby.
however, it's not really Moshe. But Moshe's term that he uses is not omenet.
No,
It's omein. Kasher
That's
yisah
omein.
omein es hayonek.
That's true. He
So
does
that's
say
a
omein.
male nursemaid.
Right.
Okay, you know, I'm carrying these people like a male nursemaid has to carry its young.
Suck-
Does, we have a Megillah,
No,
so
I-
it doesn't mean to nurture, not necessarily.
Of course.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
No, but
But literally, the term
Your
is
neck
the
is
term.
the one that's sucking milk.
Yeah,
that's
yeah, the
sucking,
wet
right?
nurse or something, but it means, in this case, it means,
Did I raise
Megillah
them
says
or
to you have.
Right? Did I raise them like an
they raised them,
omein?
they nurtured
So it does not mean that Moshe was a male lactating
no.
male,
No, it means
but it
nurture.
does mean that Moshe is referencing
Referring to
something
people,
that
yeah.
could be.
Right.
Right? In other words, like for you wouldn't think twice about a male nurse, so you wouldn't think twice about a male nursemaid, except that nursemaids, or wet nurses as they were
Yes,
called,
right.
were females.
Exactly.
So there are cases that do come up in history of male lactation. Now it requires certain hormonal changes. Certain hormones need to be added, but however, there are cases that have come up, and they're very rare. And once again, the nipple can be the lactating mechanism can be enhanced both by certain hormones, certain chemicals, and also naturally as well. So it's not out of the ballpark completely. So therefore, here's the following case. And this just simply brought in here because it's a piece of Agadah that relates to the fact that you had these izim, which seem to have had abnormal dadim, right? Dadim gasim. So here we have another abnormality. Tan Rabbana, Maisa be'echad shemesa ishto. Nebuch, this guy's wife died. V'inicha bein linok, and he was a poor guy, and he had a child that had to be nursed. And the mother would have nursed the baby, but the mother died. So it's obviously a child, maybe died in childbirth, maybe child died soon after. So So Meinika, Litain. He didn't have the schar to give to him to a nursemaid, a wet nurse. V'nasa lo nes v'niftuchu lo dadim kishnei dadei isha. And what happened was Hashem made a nes, and his dadim, his nipples, became like the breasts of a woman. V'hinik espino. And he was able to nurse his son. Okay, is that a good story or a bad story?
It's a fantastic,
Unusual story.
It's an unusual story.
That's a nice, I mean, seriously.
So what do you think? Now, how do you read that? Good or bad? Is this a happy, I mean, it's a sad story, the woman dies.
Right,
Right? So the Gemara, it's a very strange story.
it is, but.
Right? Because what would you really think that should have happened if this guy was in such dire straits and he couldn't pay for a wet nurse? Well, either someone should have volunteered, or HaKadosh Baruch Hu should have made money come out of the sky, or discover money, and he could hire
That would
someone.
have been easy, right?
Right? So, on the one hand, it sounds like it's good. On the other hand, it's not so good. So the Gemara says that you'll see the comments just reflect that kind of dichotomy. Some Rav Yosef Borei Kama Gadol Adam Zeh Shenasu No Leis Bazeh. Look how great this person was. That it's a great miracle happened for him that he was able to nurse his son. No, it's really meant seriously because you see the ones in the moment are the exact opposite.
Blind. Come and see. He's blind.
Who says he's blind?
Rav Yosef.
Okay, Rav Yosef. Oh, that's a lashon saginar. Okay, fine. That's fine. It's okay. I know a blind person that would use the term all the time. Yeah, he would say, come and show me this, or let me show you this. And he would then reference something that he had memorized. So, you know what, the first time I heard it, I kind of jumped back, because the guy was visibly blind. There's a tautology, okay? The guy was clearly blind, but on the other hand, I guess he used it. So at any rate, but let's focus more on what Rabbi Yosef said. So this is a terrific nace. Amalei Abaye said, what? Ad Rabba. Kama garua adam zeh shenashtana lo sidrei bereishis. Okay, this is really bad. Look, HaKadosh Baruch Hu changed the way things were created. We have rules that we don't change. Masi Breishis, shatness, right? You want to keep things apart. You don't want to intermingle trees and plants and growths, and you can't plant vineyards next to other things, and you can't have two animals that are different working together, and you can't intermingle animals and so forth. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we want to keep Masi Breishis. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu, this was God. HaKadosh Baruch Hu was in a tough spot, but this guy, you had to change Masi Breishis for him. So that's not such a good thing. So yeah, got him out of a tight spot. He lived happily ever after, so to speak. But this is not a good sign for a real tzaddik, because real tzaddik, HaKadosh Baruch Hu would have made a nace within Darchei Teva, which is a fascinating comment, because you normally expect that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to change the world around for you. HaKadosh Baruch Hu makes the world work for you in ways that you can work within the world, but you wouldn't expect to happen. So I'm Rav Yehuda. So Rav Yehuda says, "Borei kamakoshim mizonos shel adam shenashtanu alav sidrei breishis." Look how difficult it is to make parnasa, because the only way out of this, HaKadosh Baruch Hu had to change around ma'aseh breishis. This is actually a positive concern, or really stressing how difficult it is to make a living. Right? And I'm Rav Nachman Teida the Mesvachish Nisa v'lo avdu mizoneh. Because you see that HaKadosh Baruch, we have cases where HaKadosh Baruch Hu makes nisim in the world, and yet HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't simply make nisim to that mizonah should normally be created for a person to have food. You don't normally walk home and suddenly expect that your shelf is going to be filled with all kinds of food. Right. On the other hand, there are things that happen in the world. You say, "Oh, that was a miracle. That's unbelievable. I can't believe it." But it does the normal day-to-day stuff. You don't normally say that kind of thing. So therefore, mizonos is really difficult. And the third opinion is more of a positive kind of opinion. Okay, let's do one more story. I know it's afterwards. We started late because it's one of these kind of story times. Okay, Tan Rabbanan. So we got one funny story, or one unusual story. We got another unusual story. This story, by the way, has nothing to do with anything. Okay.
It's an unusual story.
It's a good story to end with, because then I can run away without trying to answer questions on it. Tan Rabbanan, Ma'asav Adam Echad, Shenasa Isha Gidemes. This is the last story is about a tzaddik, right? So good tzaddik, bad tzaddik, a full tzaddik, half tzaddik. So we got another case. Here was a guy, he married a woman whose hand was amputated. She was missing a hand. V'lo hikar ba ad yomosa. And he didn't know that she was an amputee, because they were such sneistic people, right? And they had a big family and many children, and have a household, and lived happily ever after until the day she died. Okay, so that shows that he was such a big tzaddik, and he kept his eyes, into the sefer and doing mitzvos and etc. etc. You're also snickering. So Amar Rav says, well, don't look at the guy, right? Borei kamatznu isha zu. This is about the isha. She was a big tsunua. Shelo hikar baila. She didn't let her husband get to know her, whatever it is, physically, to know that she was missing a hand. Okay? Amarlo, Rabbi Chia, Zu darka bakach. So that's the way of a woman. A woman is supposed to be tsunua. Alakama tsunua adam zesh lo hikar b'ishto. So the last word is no. We expect women to be tznias. It's men who are the animals, right? So the fact that this guy didn't know that his wife was missing a hand shows that he was himself a real tsunua. Okay, I don't know what to say except it must have been that she was wearing a burqa. Okay, but
It also says who was doing all the work. She must have been.
Right.
She was a real tzaddik.
well, she was a real tzaddik,
This
whatever
woman
it
was
is,
doing with one
correct.
hand
So
up.
once again, this has nothing to do with anything here. It's just simply throwing in as a coda to the previous case that we have one tzaddik, so we have another unusual kind of tzaddik. Okay, so there you
We
go.
have the same thing with Avram, when he
Right.
didn't know she was beautiful until they went down to Egypt or something.
Correct. So there comes up a number of midrashim. The difference is, this is not a case of Avram. Avram, we expect Avram, Sarah, these are great
I didn't
people.
ex-
This was the guy down the street. Everybody knew that she's missing a hand except for her husband. I mean, that's what you have to say. You have to say people knew she's missing a hand. Right? He didn't just suddenly come to with the funeral and suddenly he says, "Where's her hand?" And everybody says, "Oh, where's her hand?" Like he must say, "Where's her hand?" And they said, "Well, we knew about this all along. Where were you?" Okay. How did they see?
What?
How did they see? Because there were no coffins.
There were no